The leads we're pulling now, so much better and so much more often. It's like way more predictable.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, ninjas? Welcome to the Real Estate Dojo podcast, acronymed RED, because we help remove those red lines from your P&L so that you can focus on the things, like going on family vacations with those heightened net profits. We bring people on to the podcast. We figure out what's going on in their business. We try to give them actual advice and just little things they can do in order to move that needle forward just that little bit more, working towards the ninja way that we teach here at REISift. Today we have Jordan Rabb out of the northeastern. I don't think hemisphere is the right word. Maybe it is the right word, but he's from the Northeast. I'll let him specify exactly where he's from, because I always mix up. I always say like Delaware or something like that. I think it's Connecticut or Massachusetts. I don't know. It's all the same to me. I'm in Florida. We don't like the Northeast cold weather, so we'll bring him on. He was actually on the podcast in June of 2021, the original podcast. So basically, we're going to get an update of kind of where he's at now, what he's been doing. He's had a lot of aha moments over the last year. And we're going to see kind of what he's struggling with right now to kind of get to that next step that he's trying to get to. So let's bring Jordan on. What's up, dude?
What's up? How we doing?
Doing good, man. I appreciate you coming on again. It's like vulnerable all over again, saying your numbers all over again, all that kind of stuff. It's always appreciated, man. How's I already asked you, but for everyone else, just because I mentioned you Northeast, where are you from in Northeast?
From Boston. I like to think of Northeast as a region, not a hemisphere, but that's just me.
Region. There you go, region.
Yeah,
I'm not a hemisphere. Region makes sense. I've never claimed to be the smartest person. I just claim that I know how to make money. Okay, so yeah, good. Northeast region. See, I was just staring at you the whole time. I got nervous, but okay, so you're in the Northeast region. You're not in. Are you still in Boston?
Yeah, I live in Boston.
You live in Boston. Okay, yeah. So you're in Boston. So anyone who's in Boston, you can network with Jordan there. What's the temperature there right now?
48 and cloudy, although it's going to be 72 and sunny tomorrow, so we'll see.
So it's kind of like at that time of year where it's really bouncing back and forth a little bit, Let's see
Yeah.
what it is here right now. It is 76 here right now. We had the most insane thunderstorm last night. Woke up my kids. They were crying. They came to my bedroom. Well, one of them did. If my son made it to my bedroom last night, I would freaking think he's, I don't know. I would probably call the news. Being 8 months old, it'd be really impressive. But yeah, we got some 50s weather though next week, so we're not too far behind you. But anyway, man, appreciate you coming on. Let's talk about kind of where you were at last year real quick. What were you focusing on last year? Do you remember like June? Kind of gives people a refresher what you were doing.
I mean, last year, so I took the Auto Legion Challenge in January, so I was still kind of like newer to REISift last year, and I kind of went into, my background. I flipped for 10 years. I didn't really know what I was doing. I owned a bar. COVID happened. It kind of forced me to take my business more seriously. You can hear about that on the other podcast, but the previous one I did with you. But at that point, I think I was just straight high equity and just pounding it with I had a cold calling company. One of the big recommendations you made was ask the cold calling company and just hire your own cold callers, which I did. And it worked out great. I mean, I'm saving, I was paying like 1,800 at the time. And now I have 4 cold callers and it's like the same price. I have 2 cold callers and 2 lead managers. And, it's like, it's about 2,500 to be exact.
Okay. So now let's kind of dip our toes into what you're doing now. So I'm going to read, kind of what you got going on. So for those that are listening or watching, whenever someone comes on this podcast, basically we have kind of like a little survey that they fill out. It tells them, it's what they're spending right now, what tools they're using, and all that good stuff. So right now you got REISift business plan, so it's $300 a month. You have DNC Scrub Tool. one lead manager and one unicorn, which is essentially someone that's doing a bunch of stuff for you. You know, they're kind of that all-in-one admin, I'm sure. That's for those two individuals, about $1,500 a month. You have a niche dialer, so someone doing, I'm guessing, like the Sensei flow type strategy for $700 a month. A bulk dialer that I'm guessing is part-time or something because they're $350 a month. Then you're using Calltools, Skip Genie for some skip tracing, by about $100 of data a month, or maybe that's VA type stuff to get that niche data, which we'll talk about. And then you have AirCall, which is $350 a month. And you even went as far as giving us something I really like, which is the fact that you're using a bookkeeping software called Quick Look. That's $50 a month. And my most favorite thing out of all of these items, besides REISift, is that you have a bookkeeper for $200 a month, which is really huge because a lot of people can't see that because they're spending the money and they don't recognize it until once a year when they get their tax bill. But a bookkeeper will, in fact, save you more than what you pay them. I promise you. I promise you. I promise you. So bookkeeper, fantastic. And then $20 a month for your Microsoft Office tools and power tools and all that good stuff. So total overhead in your business right now is about $4,000 a month. Just to dig into numbers for everyone else, give you guys an idea, he's putting in right around 4 to 7 leads a day with 2 to 3 opportunities a day. In Q1 of 2022 here, which just ended, he left out with 2 short sales. Well, here, let's just break this down. About 25, 15, 5, 20, 45, about $100,000 in revenue. And that's one of those being a flip, 3 of them being wholesales, the other one being an Airbnb you purchased with 30,000 in equity. And then obviously there's a monthly, income and annualized income from that, which we can't put in account here. So not too shabby to spend 12 grand and make, $100,000, between equity and deals that are, working. So even if you were to spend 12 grand and make 40 grand, that'd be a really good, ROI for most people. We continue to make it better and we continue to refine it, but you can't really put a dollar value on once we start getting some of these Airbnbs and some of these investment strategies, especially since in 2021, this was like one of the big things that you focused on, right? Was like Airbnbs and stuff like that. So in 2021, you got 3 Airbnbs or rentals in general with quite a bit in equity, over right around $250,000 in equity there. You had a flip of about $105,000 flip, so amazing flip last year, and then a couple of wholesale deals as well. So that was your first year figuring shit out, really, which is really impressive,
Yeah, I feel like I kind of got a little lucky on a lot of those. I mean, like the leads we're pulling now, so much better and so much more often. It's like way more predictable. It's weird. Like
Yeah.
I'm on pace to not break like last year's revenue, but I feel better about like the revenue coming in now. And also,
Right.
I think we were talking about it before. Like a lot of it is I'm not taking these down and flipping them myself just because I don't have like the time to project manage all these. And I'm also JVing, which I'm sure we'll get into. But yeah, so they're smaller deals, but it's just more predictable, I feel like.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, and that's huge, right? Sometimes we take a step back, in order to get the consistency and the confidence that we want, the system, the operations, and then like we can refine those in order to increase profits, focus on a different type of data set or whatever, higher value properties that might have bigger spreads, a lot of different things. So, and like you said, like all of that revenue is really just, it can essentially be doubled because of the fact that right now, like I said, you're JVing these, so you're not getting all that revenue, and that's totally fine to do that. And once you're ready to kind of break off from that, then you can, and you're gonna, obviously with the consistency that you have in the lead gen and everything else, it's like cool. Well, I just have this like cool little strategy I could do in order to like increase my business twofold simply by having my own buyers. You are the acquisitions person right now, and you do that for about 2 hours a day. And then you're not flipping or holding right now. You're just going to continue wholesaling for the rest of the year. Is that correct?
Well, I'm kind of deciding the direction that I want to go. because I feel like we have so many leads coming in that we definitely need to make some sort of hire. Like I have the lead managers kind of filtering stuff down, but really all I have like time for is a couple hours a day of selling. And a lot of stuff is falling through the cracks now. So yeah, I don't know. It's like I kind of feel like in a way I'm stuck between like, do I just go all in and spend all this type of money and maybe even do like PPC and stuff like that, or just kind of keep the path I'm on and just be happy with it. I'm like at a critical point in my business, I feel like.
Right. Are you doing any direct mail right now?
No.
Yeah. Okay. So, and right now you're focusing on what primary data set?
So we're intaking new data every day and trying to be first to market on pre-foreclosure and probate.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about that process right now. So just to summarize for everybody, he's doing about 2 deals a month, or he's doing 2 deals a month, with the average deal size of 15,000 because he's JVing those. So that's why it's a little bit smaller. Which some people be like 15,000. Like my average wholesale deal is only 8,000, right? So still really good there. 2 deals a month, 15,000 a piece, and you're primarily doing cold calling. So what does that look like as far as getting that data in? What is first to market? And yeah, just tell us a little bit about that process.
So the unicorn's job is every morning to scrape through, whether it be court records, obituaries, whatever you want to do. We do it straight from court records right now, and we call the county, intake that new data, make it nice and clean, upload it to REISift, skip trace it, and then it goes to our niche dialer. His name's Chris. He goes through all that right away every single day. Next day he'll call yesterday's and today's, day after, last 3 days. And on the back end, we really don't do much with it, which is kind of like something that we probably should do. But yeah, and then obviously my lead managers comb through all the all the leads that we have, and then I take the best ones. But pretty much it's just like, straight from the courthouse, we dial it same day, and it's changed our business.
Okay. So then, so you're going to the courthouse, you're unicorn hire, this administrative, tech savvy individual is going in, grabbing the stuff, getting it down, getting it in a format that you can get uploaded into REISift, and then you're doing that first skip tracing in REISift, or are you skip tracing elsewhere first?
We used to, up until last week. We literally just changed it, and our contact rate's gone up. We're skip tracing through direct skip, which has like relative data and stuff like that. So then that way we actually have like better and more numbers to call. So they'll try like the best, if it's like a mobile number in the top 3, like they'll try that for all the relatives. And then we do REISift if nothing returns.
Okay, so are you uploading to REISift first, then exporting and the clean data, skip tracing, and then uploading?
No. We make it in like a nice clean format for direct skip trace it,
bring it down, upload everything all at once,
and then do it all at once. Exactly.
Okay, and that's and I wouldn't recommend that for bulk data, obviously, but since you're doing niche and prepping and cleaning that in the front side, it makes sense. And then you're uploading to REISift, and REISift you're using as that tool really to understand who am I reaching, what phone numbers did I reach, what didn't I reach, and the whole tagging process and moving that data through a funnel. And then once you've called through them X amount of times, do you have a process of how many times you're trying to reach out to those individuals, or?
Yeah, we do 3, but we're having trouble getting through all of them. So we might just do 2, and then figure out what to do on the backside of that. Maybe throw it back into the bulk dialer.
Okay. So at what point is it going into the bulk dialer now?
Right now, we don't. We just call everything. We recycle our data and we just call. We don't do any like new bulk dial. It's just new data from the courthouse, and then we recall everything already in. We skip traced so much data last year. We have pretty much like everything in the counties that I care about.
Okay. So then, but so when it's once it gets in the REISift, if your niche caller, is that niche caller sitting in Calltools then, or are they sitting on AirCall?
AirCall.
Okay, so the niche dialer calls through it on AirCall, and Then what's the bulk dial? I'm sorry. What's the bulk dialer calling then?
Yeah, they're just calling the same data from last year, recycling it. We do
Okay,
get
so they're not touching this first to market stuff. They're calling other
no,
stuff.
no, no.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's just the niche.
Got you. Okay, so the niche stuff, that first to market, and for those that don't know, first to market is basically like no different than Apple releasing a phone before, Android, right? You want to release that new type of camera lens before, somebody else. You're wanting to be the first person to talk to the seller about the problem that they're having in order to, be first to market, to that individual. And so he's being first to market so that he has a higher likelihood of being that authority in that person's life. So he's getting that data from the county, skip tracing it, getting it inside of REISift. And since he's doing it in a niche way and he's doing it those specific records, makes sense to do it that way. And then getting it inside of REISift. In REISift, he has filters to say, okay, here's all the new stuff that needs to be targeted. That gets the VA that's doing the niche calling, sees that, selects those records, and then inside of REISift, using AirCall, is click to calling and working through each of those phone numbers. After they call through that record once, they create a task to call it again tomorrow, and they do that X amount of times a day. Each day, doing all the previous days, follow-ups, and then any new outbound until you get through every day the new records first to market. But what's happening, it sounds like, is potentially you're getting so much first to market that you're kind of getting bottlenecked on follow-ups in addition to new outbound. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I think also my unicorn spends a little bit too much time, pulling that data. So it could help to scale back. I've been playing around with like, okay, do I stop pulling, one of the counties, or do I do one dial less on the Sensei flow, and keeping it, so I'm going back and forth on it.
Okay, so the way that we could figure that out, as an example, is make sure that you're tracking that third follow-up as a separate document, like a separate CSV document or a Google Sheet, so that you can see what is really the results of that third follow-up. Is it worth it? What might make sense is potentially removing that third follow-up, still removing the other county, and open up revenue and time to then send direct mail to really fully dominate that county.
Right.
Is probably what I would do. I would add that next touch in. I wouldn't add SEO and PPC yet. Google favors direct typing to websites more so than from platform in, right? So they that organic, them typing in from a postcard your address and going to your website versus going from like Facebook to your website. If you have some of that traction in there, and then you just are posting some articles on your website, that will give it some good traction. And then being able to add in that Facebook ads, on the backside is a good idea. But I don't know, because you're focused on this specific niche, if that's really the best idea. Because well, number one, a lot of it's probate stuff, and probate to hit their siblings and everybody else on that is hard. What you might do instead is just do some Facebook standardized posts that are inside of groups and stuff like that, saying, hey, I buy houses, I specialize in estate and foreclosure. So something like that might be a really good way to be able to do that, get you some traction to your website and stuff like that, and get some free leads, without having to spend as much money as like you said, it's going to cost you 10 grand or so a month to really implement that. And so instead, I'd rather have that guaranteed mail hit where they're going to guaranteed see the people that I'm trying to reach out to. So that's the route I would go. I would say, okay, let's add direct mail into that, and at least send a postcard to that house, and let them know, a nice postcard, and then just start trying to get people organic to my website, where I have my whole process of what I do for pre-foreclosures and for probates, right? Like really just go all in on that niche, and on your website have pre-foreclosure or probate. They click on that and learn the whole process on probate and how you solve that problem. The same thing with foreclosure. so they can see that path and they know, okay, well, Jordan is actually an expert in probate compared to this other guy. His website just looks like he just buys houses, right? So funnel them into knowing that you're the subject matter expert in that. I think your money will go, well, I know your money will go a lot further if you did it like that. And then you'd be able to make sure you're keeping up with that data a bunch. Because I can probably say that, and you can verify or not verify, or correct me if I'm wrong. If you were to be able to have where you are just focusing on maybe like removing a county from that, you would be able to then even probably start like doing some more outreach to siblings on some of those probates and stuff. Like you're probably not doing any of that stuff, I'm guessing right now, like outreaching to siblings or anything like from probates.
The only way we do it is if it showed up in the original skip tracing file. So
With the relatives, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if it happens, it happens. It's not like we're really going out of the way to do it.
Right. So it sounds like what would be a really good process here then is say, hey, well, let's narrow down on that county. That's my best county, the ones that my deals have come from thus far. Have the deals you had so far been some in one county, some in the other, or have they been in main county?
It's weird. Well, since we started going, because we pull statewide, so once we started going to like direct to the courthouse, we just pulled everything, and now they come from like all over the place. Like our monster deals from last year that I sent you, those came from closer to Boston, right? Now that we're pulling from the courthouse, a lot of them come from like these really like kind of poor areas where they don't really have a lot of solutions. But we still do get like the occasional, deal around here, but it's just way less.
Okay. So how many counties is there then in Mass?
Like 8.
8. And you're focusing on you're hitting all of them right now, basically. So yeah, there might be some market research to do there to see how you can narrow in. Still pull all the data, but I wouldn't necessarily skip trace all the data. I might pull all the data and then only skip trace a certain amount of zip codes first initially to save that revenue on the front side, and then really go all in on that zip code. Because then you could do things like once you do start doing Facebook marketing, people are seeing the postcard, and then they're seeing you're hearing your voicemail, but then on Facebook they're seeing a generalistic ad in that zip code, like, are you do you know somebody who's going through a rough time, having estate issues, probate, foreclosure? We specialize in just this, and something that would be really powerful then, we've talked about this in the Data to Dollars Challenge in the first week there, but building that credibility package then, right, to be able to send out, maybe you send postcards initially, but then you send out something that's a little bit more expensive, like, $1.75, $2, type credibility package. And you send those out. And another tactic you can do is there's some products that you can use that you can actually send through the text message, a PDF or a video explaining your process and how you help when it comes to probate as well. Like, hey, respond back with your email and I can send you this free gift, whole package. Whether you buy from me or not, I want to make sure you're taken care of. You're going to get my attorney. You're going to get this. You're going to get this. You're going to get this. You literally give everything on a platter to them. And so there's some really cool ways you can really enhance that. But it'd be hard to do statewide off the bat,
Do you think I'm throwing out money if I'm mailing them after only 2 attempts? Does it make more sense to try to reach some of these people on the 3rd attempt?
It depends on if you're dialing through all the siblings as well, or just like the first 3 numbers. Because I don't necessarily think you might be I definitely don't think it's a waste of money, right, to send that postcard, because it could be another 2 days of dialing, another 2 attempts before they would answer, right? But by then your postcard's already going to potentially be, it's going to be staged and ready to go. Right. So it really just depends. There's a little bit more KPI variables we need to know to see that, and some split testing to do. But I don't think it'd be a wasted money, because some of those people are never going to answer their phone and only a postcard. And if you wait until the 3rd or 4th attempt, the opportunity cost of not just sending it earlier for those specific people, they might already have a solution. And by the time you do end up finally sending the mail, so I don't know, it's a hard one to know until you start like really tracking the numbers on it for your market. But I like 3 attempts because I feel like, to me, 3 days, seeing the same number in a row try to call me makes me feel more so than just 2 days. I don't know. That's just me. Like if I see, oh, someone calls me today, yesterday, and they call me again today, I'm like, okay, whatever. I call it third day in a row. It's just that something about the number 3, it's like you're, I don't know, third time's the charm type of, philosophy. But I don't know. A lot of people, they're getting Sensei flow stuff up this the 6th time is when they finally convert. Same freaking number. You call them 6 days in a row and they don't answer on the 6th day. What variables come a part of that could be a lot, from the time of day that you ended up calling that number to that might be that person's, 6 times the charm kind of, philosophy. It's just a lot of variables there, and you're just really never going to know. What I would do, however, is add in that next process of skip tracing in a second location, no matter what it is, and making sure you're calling through it another 1 or 2 times or 3 times after you send that, direct mail piece, or you wait, it's up to you. But I don't know that I would only send 2, call through 2 times and then never call again, period. It's just a matter of figuring out what is the best time to call given my team size, to be able to still maintain new outbound, because that's ultimately our priority, is to continue to be first to market, not get behind on that.
Right.
And if we start bottlenecking on the outbound on that old stuff, then we should just make sure we send direct mail, so they're at least we're getting in front of them, and maintain first to market on the new stuff.
How do you feel about throwing? So once you kind of go through, you call through, you realize what numbers are working, what numbers aren't. How do you feel about throwing it back in like a bulk dial, or maybe on a slower line, channels per line?
Yeah, I feel okay about that, right? It's the same principle of like what we talked about when they did the dollars challenge, right? Doing Sensei flow first and then pushing into a bulk, kind of just to hit those numbers and maintain those, and at a faster speed to see if we can get a conversion. I think that's okay. And the other benefit to that is that you can rotate your tracking numbers really easily, so they see a different number every single time. Downfall is that they can feel as though their phone has been hit on some spam list or something. You're getting a bunch of spam calls all of a sudden in a 1 week period in time, and they could just start flagging everything that comes in they don't recognize. So there is, downfalls to that. You could increase your abandon rate doing that. However, it's a good way to go about it. Making sure that the text messages are going out is another big one. But yeah, totally. I think that's okay. You can go back through, then you can throw it in a bulk dialer, still send out at least 1 postcard to start with, to them all, but then throw them in a dialer. That's a viable option as well. I definitely wouldn't hire a acquisitions though, for a little bit. I mean, it really depends on your time. Right now, I feel like you're in the stage right now where you should maintain where you're at least for a whole nother quarter, and try to stockpile cash and not give that up. If anything, it might be where I hire an additional lead manager, but you already have 2. So I would almost want to know a little bit more about what other things might be going on with those leads and the follow-ups, and how much follow-ups are going on, to refine maybe that. Because it might be that you don't need another lead manager or acquisitions. It might be something before that process that needs tweaked, so that lead managers aren't dealing with following up with people who aren't fully like motivated potentially, or not really leads. Things like that need to be looked at.
That's definitely one thing. So this is definitely one thing that I've kind of been battling in my own head, and that's what we consider a lead on like some of these are really liberal. Like because I don't want to keep retraining cold callers. I feel like it's the hardest one to retrain. So we don't really pre-qualify much up front. What we do is we call, whether it's bulk or Sensei flow, push it to the lead manager. Lead manager then follows up and says, "Hey, I know you spoke to whatever," and then they further pre-qualify them. That's when it gets to me.
And that's okay. I think that's fine. If to me, a lead is anybody who's interested in selling a property with 0 qualification, right? That qualifies to a lead for me. Okay. The lead manager's job is to qualify, to figure out, are they cold, warm, or hot, right? And then from that, prioritize your outbound offers, right, based off of cold, warm, or hot. And really, you should only really be talking to hot people that want to sell like in the next 30 days. If they feel as though maybe they can't handle the situation and need to speak with someone like you a little bit more, then yeah, maybe it could maybe be that your lead managers need a little bit more training on qualifications and handling a lot more of that sales process a little bit more, some of that gatekeeper type stuff. But then we fall back on, well, is my lead managers have enough time for that with the amount of leads I'm generating, with the follow-ups that they have in addition to the new? But if you're getting 5 to 7 a day, and you have 2 lead managers, that's, let's say, 3 new leads per day. And then, if they're not at like 30 follow-ups a day yet, they could be. If they're both at 30 follow-ups every single day, then yeah, you might be time to have another lead manager, because with 30 new outbound follow-ups with 3 new inbound, they could be getting a little saturated to where they're not able to maintain. But where people mess up is like they end up hiring a new lead manager, but they don't look to see, yeah, well, it's 30 this day, but it's only like 15 the next day that they have to follow up with. And like the next day only has like 10. So it's not like 30 every single day. It's like there's days of the week where there's like nothing. So what they need to do in those situations is, like, on a day that you have a light day, you need to start forward calling on your heavy days. And so if you only have 10 today to follow up on, and you don't have any inbound, your lead manager's got to be proactive enough to say, okay, well, let me look at my week and let me get ahead of like Friday, because I know Friday I have 40. That's just how the cookies crumbled, right? And I'm going to go ahead and forward look that and make sure I handle that. So that's just like that should be kind of looked at on your first of the week meeting, like forward projecting on your level 10 meeting, or your meeting with your lead manager. Say, okay, well, let's look at what everyone's got this week. Okay, Janny, you got 10. Johnny, you got 20 today. This week total, Johnny, you only have like 100, and Jan, you got like 250. Like, so Johnny, you might have to dip in to help out Jan a little bit or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the great thing about them is they're husband and wife. So like,
oh really?
They just pass it back and forth to each other, which is awesome. Because like, if they make a really bad impression, they're in the next room. They say, "Hey, Steph, can you give me a call? Can you call this guy in a couple months because he just told me to fuck off or whatever."
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the big thing that I was thinking with acquisitions, and I don't want to, I know you don't think it's time. I really want to build out my dispo because I'm leaving a ton of money on the table, and I just haven't had time to really put in like a good dispo process yet. So that was also part of my thinking.
So, I totally can agree with that, right? But first, look at the lead manager side, right? Figure out what can be refined there, because it might be where whoever is the better conversator out of that husband and wife can get to the point where they're making soft offers, right? For you, and open up some time for you so that you're not dealing as much with conversations. And so that's where I would do. If I was going to hire a lead manager, I would be promoting within, or if I was going to hire an acquisitions, I'd be promoting within with lead managers if possible. If that's like, if it fits, that's the ideal situation, because they already are really good at conversating and they already know the whole process. And then, if they can make offers, then it makes things a lot easier rather than hiring a straight, acquisitions. Because what we know is that, and some people disagree with this, but what I believe in is that sales is not it's not a brute force game like a lot of operations. It's a conversative game, especially when you're dealing with probate and pre-foreclosure or foreclosure in general. So like, your offers that you make, it's more about helping the seller understand the whole situation, what's going on, and not so much about like, well, you're never going to get a better offer than this. Now's the time. You don't have, it's different, with those types of vexations. So lead managers typically make pretty damn good acquisitions because they're already really good at conversating. So I don't know. Other than that, the other thing is just, looking at the calendar on your side and like looking at your day and be like, okay, well, I'm going to block out, the 3 hours on Fridays to focus solely on dispositions. And that could be really maybe even the first to second step is really focusing on making sure I'm doing my proper time blocking.
No, I think that's a good idea. Even if they could just get the seller in range, how easy would it for, the ones that say no, great, good thing I didn't call them. And, if Because the big
Right.
thing is they don't really make offers like at all. They don't even give ranges. If they could even get them in like $100,000 range, at least I know that there's some room there, you know?
Yeah, or even, making sure that they're asking what they might be expecting. Like, what's your expectation, to walk away from the property, or what is it that would make sense for you? How much cash are you guys needing in your pocket? Now, obviously, you need to teach them like pre-foreclosure. Sometimes they don't get any cash in their pocket, right? You're
Right.
pre-foreclosure, and explaining that, and so, um, I think that's a really good place to start. I think what it sounds like is potentially maybe narrowing in on the data a little bit more on a region to dominate, that has the highest opportunity, and then looking into that process of the lead managers and figuring out what's their task loadout, and then working on a little bit of their training when it comes to making offers, and at least getting in place a range type situation, or at least getting a price from the seller, so that you have a little bit more expectation you know um, where you should prioritize your your outbound calls. Because if they're like, oh yeah, I'm expecting it 600,000, but it's only worth 200,000, the lead manager will be like, yeah, this is a cold, so you can take your time on this one.
Right.
And so then you can focus a little bit of that time making sure you spend at least an hour a day or 3 hours a week or whatever to build out that dispo process, which honestly really should only take a week or two to build out the actual process, which we're going to cover in the Data Dollars Challenge anyway,
Mhm.
next week, as far as process is concerned. But then as far as like the documentation on what specific title companies, how to find new buyers in maybe a zip code that you haven't even got a deal in yet in that market, getting that data, that it's really like a couple week thing. So I don't think that it's going to be where like you have to build out this process and it's going to be something where it's going to take over a lot of your time for months, right? I think it's going to be like, it's going to take some initial time from you. And so that's why I don't think hiring an acquisitions is smart. Because I think in a few months afterwards, you're going to realize that you're going to have nothing to do,
Right.
because, you're going to hire yourself out, which isn't a bad thing, as long as the revenue is respective to you not having to do anything, right?
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
So, cool, man. So I mean, a lot has changed in the last year. Um, I mean, I know personally you've moved like 16 times, you've dealt with some crazy rental property stuff. I'm sure you've learned a shoot ton in the last year, overall. You feel like there's consistency that's, boiling up right now. You're
Right.
still continuing to educate yourself in the best way, the best, choices. You're still putting yourself in the room with, people who are where you are at and where you want to be at. So overall, I think like throughout this year, man, you're going to continue to have like explosive quarters where each quarter, you're, growing that much more in confidence, number one, and number two, just revenue, just because you're doing all the right actions and movements. So, I look forward to watching it, man.
Appreciate
Do you
it.
have any other
Thanks too.
questions for me? I think we have a pretty good action plan in place for the next, quarter for the rest of Q2, I think.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that that's all. I mean, I've learned so much just from this call that I can go and implement some of that stuff. I think it'll free up a lot of my time too, which will be a huge help.
For sure, 100%. So hopefully, anybody else who's listening, like you kind of got an idea of kind of see maybe your maybe your organization, your business is similar to where Jordan's is at right now, and you're asking yourself the same exact questions Jordan is, and just by having that conversation with Jordan, kind of bouncing back and forth, and the reasons why I would hire or not hire, or the benefits of narrowing down on a market or staying open, doing PPC, not doing PPC, versus that physical thing touching their door where they're going to see it, versus they might not ever search for you on PPC. These different things, you might be able to help you sit down and kind of pull out a piece of paper, jot down your operation, and figure out, okay, what am I doing? What do I really think I should be doing? And then allocating the time to kind of build that out. Jordan, man, I appreciate you hopping on. I appreciate you being vulnerable. I appreciate you being the first guest, and also the first follow-up guest,
I love it.
which is cool. It's funny
Hopefully, I'm
how
the
that
first
happened.
three-time guest.
Yeah, you're gonna be first 3 time. Well, you would have to be, right? You can't come like I can't now. It's just set up to be that way.
Love it.
So I appreciate that, man. Hopefully this was valuable to everybody else. You guys can reach out to Jordan in the community, the REISift Mastermind community. Just tag him in there. You can send him a message. I'm sure on Facebook. I don't know if you're not really on IG, are you?
No, I am.
You are. What is it?
Yeah.
Just at Jordan Rab.
No, it's JRAB official.
JRab official.
RABB.
RABB. So hit him up on IG, especially if you're in that, Northeastern market, network, meet each other. And do you have, I don't know, any advice for anybody at all?
Just do everything that Tyler Austin says and you'll be good.
I appreciate it. Yeah, no, thanks, man. Appreciate it. Make sure you guys head to YouTube and subscribe to the YouTube channel. To search REISift on YouTube. Subscribe there. That's where the videos get posted. If you're not a video person, you want to listen while you're driving, and you don't have YouTube Pro or whatever, to where your phone has to be awake to watch YouTube, which is the dumbest thing ever. Then Spotify is your next best option. Just head over to Spotify, search the Real Estate Dojo, I believe, and subscribe on Spotify or iTunes or whatever else. Appreciate it again. Thanks for listening, and thanks, Jordan, for coming on, man. Later.
Thank you.